Good evening and welcome to the Jobs Development Authority meeting for Monday, October 4th. Welcome and roll call.
Weigel.
Here.
Dockler.
Here.
Weber.
Here.
Mock.
Here.
Kavami.
Here.
Sandy.
Here.
Veen.
Here.
Mayor Baczynski.
Here.
All right, all present, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Item 2, JDA action items. 2.1, FlexPACE Loan request for Associated Potato Growers.
Chairwoman Mock, members of the authority, I'm Brandon Bombach, Director of Business Development for the Grand Forks Region EDC, and I'm presenting the application on behalf of Associated Potato Growers Incorporated. They're one of the largest and oldest grower-owned red potato packing co-ops in the Midwest. They have a location here in Grand Forks as well as in Grafton and in Drayton. They sort, clean, and package and sell multiple size potato varieties all over the country, making them a primary sector company. They continue to invest in the Grand Forks facility and improve efficiencies. They are purchasing an upgraded robotic palletizing system. The request in front of you today is a total project cost of $372,000. This is 100% financed by Coda Bank. This is a request for FlexPACE to buy the interest rate down to 1%. It's a request of about $16,000 from the growth fund, then leveraging about $30,000 from the Bank of North Dakota. This is a very healthy loan to value of 69%. It is also secured through corporate guarantee and a UCC filing on the equipment. The only thing asterisk worth pointing out in the application is that they do have a current FlexPACE loan on the books with the City of Grand Forks. It's requested that the liability on that be moved into a second position behind the new debt here from Coda Bank. This is a very normal operation and we do that all the time. That loan balance is $22,500. This was approved by the EDC at its Board of Directors meeting September 2nd, the Growth Fund on September 20th, and I'm happy to stand for any questions on the application. As well with me is Mike Torgerson, CEO of the company, seated behind me, and Chase Bowen with Coda Bank, also happy to answer any questions on the application.
Thank you. Any questions?
I'll move approval.
We have a motion. In a second. Let's open the public hearing. Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 2.2, FlexPACE Loan request for Hopeful Beginnings.
Yes, members of the authority, another FlexPACE application from Hopeful Beginnings. They're a preschool and child care center located in the Grand Cities Mall. It's a standalone 501c3 nonprofit, but it's fully backed and supported by Hope Church. Child care center began in 2015 and has grown to offer 98 spots for infants through school age. There continues to be a really large need in Grand Forks for child care provision. According to North Dakota Child Care Aware, in their measure, only 39% of the total need is really being met by available child care spots. So it's a really important issue. That's the reason why the FlexPACE program has been extended to child care from the Bank of North Dakota. This project hopes to expand the child care facility in capacity from that 98 to a total of 278 spots, bring the total child count to 28 infants, 40 toddlers, and 44 school-age students. Right. There's a couple of numbers there. It's actually larger than that, but a lot more children added here in an additional 6,000 square feet in the old Meridian location on the north side of that Grand Cities Mall. The project is $1.4 million. This is being 100% financed by Choice Bank for the real estate and the fit up. And the loan request is of the growth fund for $126,000 to leverage $235,000 from the Bank of North Dakota to buy the interest rate down. Loan to value is a little bit higher than other projects at 107%, but it's really quite normal with child care facilities. A lot of lenders will lend based on that guaranteed revenue of that demand we've just discussed and not as much real property involved. This is secured on a mortgage on the property, the corporate guarantee, and guaranteed by Hope Church, as I mentioned that relationship. This too was approved by the EDC at the Board of Directors meeting September 2nd and the Growth Fund on September 20th. And just like the last application, we do have representation from the organization. Sarah Schindler, the director of Hopeful Beginnings, is seated behind me, and the bank is represented by both Todd Olson and Kayla Every. In case there are any questions for this, myself or any of those would be happy to stand for those questions.
Thank you. Any questions?
More of a comment, just quick thanks to the EDC for recognizing that childcare is a broad-based community need and an important economic development issue. This was important before the pandemic. It's become even more critically important since then, and I'll move approval.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
This is Ken, I'll second.
Second from Mr. Veen. Let's take a second and open the public hearing. Seeing no one, will close the public hearing. Any further comments or questions? Mr. Sandy?
Mr. Bombach, how is it that Hopeful Beginnings decided which age groups of young people that they were going to add to their numbers, and how many current infants do they handle? I mean, I see that we're going to go to 28 infants after the facility is ready. Is it currently 28, or how many do they actually currently have?
As I mentioned, Sarah Schindler, Director, would be most appropriate to answer the question.
Hi. We currently have 14 infants and we'll go to 28. And so
Double.
we're expanding all of the age groups 0 through 12.
Sure, and so how did you determine which age groups you wanted and by how many?
Sure. So based on our current facility where we currently are, we're going to keep that space just infants and toddlers. And so it's based on square footage, 35 square feet per child, and kind of how the ratios go, how many kids we can put in a room, and how many staff we have.
Great, thank you very much. I think it's relatively widely known that infants are the age group that are most in need of, we are most in need of capacity for. I certainly am a big supporter of this opportunity, but I would think that in the future we should try to also be more laser focused and help the child care providers that are willing to take that leap, that want to add more infants, because I think we all know that financially they're the most difficult to handle, which is why it's the biggest need. So I for one would be, if it means somehow financially supporting child care providers to help them bridge that gap, I would be more than happy to support that. Thank you.
Further comments or questions? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Item 2.3, pilot loan request, Block 5 properties.
I guess that's me. It's a loan request. It's part of the pilot that is going to be presented next week at hopefully at a special city council meeting. That's more directed at the exemption. Attached to the staff report is the development agreement. The JDA will be a party to the development agreement because of a loan that was being sought, $900,000 loan, which is the amount needed there's a shortfall for the improvement by the developer. For purposes of the JDA, there'll be a $900,000 promissory note. It requires annual payments of about $55,000 per year at a rate of 2% per year is the interest rate. The last payment on the note will be a little less because I'm anticipating, in the amortization that I put together for this particular payment, I anticipated that the project will be completed by the end of, sometime in December of 2022. And so there'll be a short year, there won't be a full year of interest when the first payment is due in February of 2023. The result of that is you pay less interest in the first payment, but then you're eating into the principal amount more so in the first payment, which results in the last payment being a little less. I think it's about a $34,000 payment at the end of the 20-year term of the note. Also required under the development agreement is that we obtain a mortgage against the property, which would be a first lien mortgage against the property. Also personal guarantees from those involved with the developer. The conditions for the loan, one is that the project is actually completed, that we have a certificate of occupancy issued for the project after all the work is done. And that the other primary one is that we get a title commitment showing that we'd have a first lien position with respect to the mortgage. There are early payment requirements where the note is accelerated. If, for example, the pilot would be terminated on the terms of the development agreement, there are some required terminations by statute. Another one would be if they default under the TIF agreement, that would accelerate the amount owing at that time. Or if they cease to do business, then we'd commence the recovery of the entire amount. And obviously, if we had to, there'd be foreclosure rights and pursue the guarantee as well. The development agreement and the pilot are interconnected in that with the pilot, there'll be an exemption for the property tax that has a property tax savings on an annual basis. It doesn't mean that I would expect the developer would use those property tax savings to assist in making the annual payment on the promissory note, but it's not required. Irrespective, the annual payment is due and owing regardless of where they get those funds to service that debt. So it's a means of, it's a little different. It's somewhat the same as you have with the Beacon, except we're not going out and doing a bond. You're providing a loan to the developer directly, saving the costs for a bond issuance.
All right, comments or questions from JDA? No? We'll open the public hearing. Seeing no one, will close the public hearing. Any motions from? Motion from Sandy? Is there a second? Second from Weigel. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Item 2.4, Corporate Center 2 Lease Renewal, Social Security Administration.
Thank you, Ms. Mock. The staff report kind of walks you through the history of the GSA or Social Security Administration's tenancy in Corporate Center 2. They first began occupancy in March of 2007, and that lease expires in this coming February. So the staff report shows what the terms are that are current, with the upshot being, we display it in any number of breakdowns, but right now they're paying approximately $180,000 a year. We were contacted this February by GSA and requested to submit a lease proposal. A one-year renewal process, I guess, is common with GSA. And their submission package was quite complex. The staff report lists all the elements that are included there. So in any case, we did, with the help of staff from AE2S, put together what we considered our final and best offer, and that was submitted to GSA in August. Those terms are summarized also in your staff report, so this would be for a 20-year lease, 18 years firm. As you know, the Corporate Center 2 was advertised for sale, and it was disclosed that the lease was expiring in February and that we were actively negotiating an extension with GSA. Subsequent to that bid opening, we did share all this pricing information with Mr. Grimsley, who was the presumed purchaser, or the high bidder on the sale. And so where we are today is we don't have an offer from GSA or a lease extension document to approve. However, we have been in very frequent communication with GSA, and we expect that to be forthcoming. Along with the cost, there are other terms that, the staff report kind of gives you that laundry list of attachments. So there's a lot of documentation involved. We do believe that they are very pleased with the actual bottom line pricing. We've discussed the commission that needs to be paid, that's kind of standard for the broker that is hired by GSA to act as their intermediary on this. But given the uncertain timing, GSA, to be blunt, has been slower than molasses in January on this process. So with a closing targeted for the end of this month, we're asking for JDA to approve these terms, assuming that GSA will be forthcoming with an actual document, so that if that comes at the last minute, we can execute. I'm going to let Mr. Gosted kind of talk about the intricacies of timing the lease execution with the sale.
Yep, and we're in the midst of, we've got a closing October 25th. We're scheduled closing October 25th for the sale. The buyer is agreed, or the sale is subject to, and the buyer, is subject to all agreements that are existing or provided to the seller. Also, there is a provision with respect to rents that are going to be prorated up to the date of closing. Also, expenses and operating costs furnished to, provided for, or incurred for the property are also to be prorated. And so, as I explained it during the Growth Fund Committee, I'm really more lasered in on closing the transaction. And if we happen to execute this lease in advance of that closing, then we'll have to deal with the prorating of those type of matters, any costs and the rents, and actually all the rents would be payable after the closing, since the current lease expires in February 2022. But if we don't get to that spot, then we close the transaction, and Mr. Grimsley has to then carry the day with respect to the balance of the GSA leasing.
Thank you. Comments or questions? Seeing none, let's open the public hearing. Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion? Motion by Sandy, second by Weigel. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. I would entertain a motion to consider item 3.1 on the Career Impact Academy before we vote on item 2.5.
I'll move to modify the agenda.
Thank you. Is there a
I'll second.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Mr. Phelan.
Thank you, JDA President Mock. I'm also joined today by Eric Ripley, Becca Kruger, and John Onken, who have been doing a lot of heavy lifting on this Career Impact Academy. But leading into that, I just want to give you an update on this particular property, and thank you also to Mr. Baseflug and Ms. Collings for all the work they did on hopefully what you approve on the abatement and demolition. First, I want to start off with, as you recall, we purchased this property, the JDA purchased this property for $450,000, and there was some contingencies in that agreement about the abatement of this particular former Holiday Inn property. So I just want to go over, when we first discussed this, the purchase with the American Bank Center is this particular parcel along with this parcel right here. So if you total those two parcels up, thank you to Ms. Lazura of our assessing department, we estimate the value of that property at $1,144,400 for both of those properties. And so if you can add the abatement and the demolition is anticipated, Mr. Basil was $444,150. We purchased this property for $450, or both properties, I should say, and that's $894,150. And so our goal really was to be under $1 million. In this case, it's 1.14 and change. So I think we're under what we were concerned about, that we didn't have a large demolition and abatement cost as we move forward. So check that off our list. The other thing I just wanted to point out, and I failed to do this, they're going to come up and talk about this $20 million project, $10 million from the state, $10 million from the local community. So certainly the property value right here is applicable to that $10 million match. The other thing we're looking at is how can we add additional parcels. So I've spoken with Ms. Rigg of the Convention and Visitors Bureau about whether we can incorporate the shared parking lot because it is well underutilized with how CVBs operate currently. She's amenable to that. Obviously, they still need parking. The other parcel is a City of Grand Forks owned parcel, and this particular parcel used to be a water booster station pump station. We moved that to the west of town, to near where the airport is, and so we certainly cleaned up the property, and this is in the City of Grand Forks' name. So this is a parcel right here, including the CV parcel that would add another 590.
Mr. Phelan, it's not actually up
Oh.
on the screen.
John, thank you. Anyways, here's the property. These are the American Bank West properties at 1.144 million. Again, I talked about the demolition, so we're well under what you would be concerned about, and certainly our goal was less than 1 million. Trying to cobble as much of this site as together, so we're looking at considering this site. Again, this would require both the CVB to buy off on that, and also the City of Grand Forks and the City Council, because whatever we can move together with this property will help with the overall match of this particular property. There's been some site development. We want to make sure this will fit the site, and so this is a sketch or a concept drawing, I would say, from JLG, and they're going to come forward and talk about all the different programs we can get in. This is the phase 1 and 2 parcel, so there's room for expansion on this particular property, so it looks like it fits. It's going to be effective. And when we agreed to purchase this property, subject to all the particulars, in the meantime, it's come as the #1 priority for this Career Impact Academy. Even if the worst case scenario goes forward, for whatever reason we can't move forward with the property, the goal was really to clean up this property and get it either redeveloped as a CIA project or some other private development. So I think we've got a good deal in getting this property back in order. I wanted to point out right now, these are all the initial estimates, and they're conceptual estimates, so you want to take all these things with a grain of salt. You can look at phase 1. Phase 1 right now is a 60,000 square foot building, and when we look at a $20 million budget, that's right now what they're saying is what we can afford for a $20 million. Phase 2 is another additional 26,000 square feet that would be meant for an addition, or if this community can raise an additional funds above and beyond that $20 million. So that's kind of where we're at. I think it checks the boxes of we're in good shape. It can be a really terrific CIA facility. Worst case scenario, it's a really great spot for redevelopment. And in either case, we should look at trying to integrate our city property and the CVB property is to make this as marketable as possible. With that, I'd hand it over to Becca Kruger to start up the presentation and give you an idea of kind of where we're at.
Thank you. Good evening, Councilwoman Mock and members of the JDA. I'm happy to be here today to talk about the Career Impact Academy. I suppose I should start by saying the last time I was here before you, we referred to it as the CTE Center. It does officially have a name now, which is the Career Impact Academy. And one of the big things that Mr. Phelan mentioned is the space for the Career Impact Academy and where we are hoping to build this asset for our community. We did go through a scoring rubric that looked at 5 different things, and we examined 5 different sites. The first thing we looked at was access for both Grand Forks School District students and as well as access for our rural school districts. This site definitely has great access for both of those populations. We also looked at access to key industry partners and available internship or apprenticeship opportunities. As you know, the Career Impact Academy, the whole goal is to introduce students both at the high school and post-secondary levels to regional career opportunities. So being in close proximity to industry is something that was important when we were examining the site. This building does have a number of key industries along the Gateway corridor, as well as very close to the industrial park, and it's on some good cross sections in terms of transportation routes as well. We looked at things like amenities, so availability for parking, transportation, those sorts of things. This is on a bus route, which was important. Some of the other sites we looked at were not. And it does have good availability in terms of school buses being able to get in and turn around as well. We also looked at cost. That certainly was one of the things, and ability to expand. Some of the sites we looked at, there simply wouldn't have been that ability. And so I think it's important as you're considering any project to future plan as well. So when we went through that list of 5 things, our steering committee really landed on this site as the priority location. We then hired JLG Architects as our engineering firm, who also assessed the 5 various properties, and they did also land on this property as being the priority location amongst those 5 sites. Separately and independently, AE2S, which is their contracting firm, also looked at these 5 different sites and scored, and this again was the priority location that their team came up with. So we are very confident in terms of this being a great location for the Career Impact Academy. We've also done a lot of work in terms of engaging with the public and industry, including students and parents as well. And so you'll see us probably throughout the community over the next couple of months. Again, we will be releasing a rural school district survey to gauge interest in our programming. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Ripley from Grand Forks Public Schools to talk about the programming aspect and some updates there.
Good evening. Eric Ripley, Grand Forks Public Schools, Grand Forks Area Center. Privileged to be here tonight. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about the Career Impact Academy. Obviously, working within the career and technical education realm, my focus is generally on programming, education, the courses that are going to be offered underneath of this facility. And it's exciting when we take a look at, again, early renderings of what it potentially could look like. I'll tell you there's also some symbolism with the site selection of Gateway being kind of the primary one, and that is of the connections to our post-secondary partners. There are 3 post-secondary partners at the table with us as we talk about programming: University of North Dakota, Northland Community Technical College in East Grand Forks, and Lake Region State College. And so Gateway kind of connects all 3 of those post-secondary partners together. Certainly has great access for our rural schools, being right off of Gateway and the interstate, as well as being really approximately kind of centered between Central and Red River High School. And then I just think about the term Gateway. The concept here is we're trying to introduce kids earlier to make them aware of the careers that are available within the region, the concept of a gateway to your future career pathway. I think that plays well. And then the final thing, living in Grand Forks for almost 30 years, I didn't realize what the former space used to be, and that apparently was the airfield. And so part of the design, actually, if you mirror it over the top of the former airfield space, actually mirrors runways. It's kind of interesting how the design of the building is. And so, again, there's a lot of symbolism in there, and as Beck indicated, has certainly emerged as our primary site. What's exciting about the conceptual designing of a building is really we're trying to design a building to fit the programming, not the other way around, right? We're not trying to shoehorn programming into a facility that currently exists, and that is really where we're at right now with some of our CT programs within both our in-town and out-of-town schools, and really doing the best we can with the facilities that we currently have. But what's exciting for us is to be able to think about the facility, the lab design, the specified equipment that would be really needed to help introduce students to career opportunities early in their high school career, connect them with post-secondary opportunities for dual credit articulation with our post-secondary partners that then feed the regional industry demands and needs. And that's really the concept that we're trying to encapsulate here. Just at a very high level, I'll just run through real quickly the programming that we're talking about conceptually with both Phase 1 and Phase 2. And again, we think that they check all three of those boxes: student interest, post-secondary alignment, regional industry demand. And in no particular order: health sciences, precision agriculture, computer science or IT, welding, engineering and robotics, culinary arts, building trades, automotive services, advanced manufacturing, and aerospace and unmanned systems. And so we think that that encapsulates a great breadth of CT course opportunities, many of those that we don't currently have opportunities to provide to students because, again, the lack of facilities that we currently have. As a big part of the effort, Todd indicated that there is a need to be able to raise dollars at the local level to access the state match, and a big part of that is obviously the willingness of industry partners to step forth, see the vision, and be able to partner along with public entities like the city, the county, the school district, to be able to make this not just a concept, but a reality. And so representing our industry tonight would be a co-chair of one of our impact fundraising committees, and that's Mr. John Onken. So, John, want to speak for a little bit?
Well, good evening, everyone. My name's John Unken. I'm owner and CEO of True North Equipment. And so my part in this, when I heard through a meeting we had, as I'm on the EDC board, and we were talking about the CT concept, and before the name was really derived, the need was there. And it was really a common sense thing that we really needed to take a common sense approach and say, and recognize that every industry in our region is needing talent in different levels and different ways. Schools also, moving from not only the trades into a 2-year school or 4-year school or anything beyond that. And as a champion in this, one of the things that I'm trying to do is deliver a message to every business in our community and region. I'm a business owner in this community, and I'm a business owner in many other towns around this region. And quality talent and an intentional approach as a business owner to develop that quality talent is really essential. So whether you run a very small business and you have a few technicians or you have a few people on staff, it's as vital to you as it is to somebody that has a larger business. And our goal is to bring that visibility to the community. The Career Impact Academy has so many different opportunities for all of the fields that we have. We can look at what's happened in our state, in our region, to see other CT centers that have been put together and get some best practices that fit what we have. But again, we have to develop the curriculum, as Eric talked about, and Becca, that fits our regional need. And we have an ultimate opportunity to pay it forward with the investments that we do now to deliver a greater experience for our students, because many of those trades degrees were not readily available or as visible as maybe students had seen. And the opportunities and the income generating level that they can get in these degrees or in these career fields is phenomenal. And we just have a distinct opportunity. So as we look at building visibility in that matching fund piece, it's important that we get out, and as every week we go through the list, and we're working to create that network and understanding of what the investment can be and how intentional you can be as a business owner to be a part of this and the success that comes forward. So we're just excited to be a part of this and see this come to fruition and grow and hopefully exceed what we need right now. Okay? Any questions?
Any questions?
We're good?
Mayor? Yep.
Just wanted to thank you. I know, John, you've been working on this quite a bit, and not only have you, been helping out with your time, but I've heard you've also put your money where your mouth is on this project. So just appreciate all your work on this.
Thank you.
Oh, that's for Sandy.
So, Mr. Ripley, you earlier mentioned the opportunity for dual credit. You mentioned that in the Growth Fund meeting.
Yes.
What programs are going to be offering dual credit, and through what institutions will students be able to get them?
It's a great question, Mr. Sandy. So right now, the primary dual credit partner for the school district right now is Lake Region State College, which is one of the 3 post-secondary partners that we have. And so we currently are doing some dual credit opportunities through our CT programs with them, specifically in the IT field. But we do think that there's an ability to grow and advance that. There's existing articulation agreements that we have with Northland Community and Technical College. Again, sometimes CT programs lend themselves well to a 2-year technical program, but not always. And that's why I'm appreciative of Dr. Jeff Holmes' work on our committee from the University of North Dakota, because when we talk about things like aerospace, which you're well versed in, or engineering fields, or IT, computer science, certainly those programs and medical careers, I shouldn't forget that either, lend themselves very well to a 4-year degree. I think that there's opportunities to do there. I will tell you that at times the tier schools are a little bit more receptive to dual credit with CT programs and 4-year schools, but I think that there's a willingness to want to grow and expand upon that.
And I would respectfully disagree with that. I think that there's really only one 4-year school that disagrees with the dual credit concept, but that's a discussion for another day. I really appreciate everything that you have done for this project, and so I want to be very. I think you're a rock star, because if Mr. Ripley were running every project the school district did, they would all be successful. You have a history of success.
Thank you, sir.
I am curious, though, and I think it's really important that our community understand the financing of what's going on with the CTE centers. We're currently trying to raise $10 million, which is great, so that we can get the state match. Great concept. That gets us phase 1. We build a bunch of buildings. We have no money to put any equipment in the buildings. We don't have any money to pay any of the people that will be working there. I for one, think we're totally cart and horse on this. And I get that the governor's initiative is the CTE centers across the state, and I understand the benefit for the students, because it's a great benefit for the students, and we should always have that at the forefront. And I also think it's a great benefit for lots of the employers in our community to be able to get skilled labor and shorten the training required for the young people. I'm very concerned about how we're going to pay for the operations of the CTE center. I've yet to hear anyone say that they're even thinking about it. Perhaps the school district is, but we all know that it's going to end up, I assume, it's going to end up on the school district's plate.
Correct.
Okay. I'm worried. I'm worried about it. And we all know that we were exactly T-minus 1 day after the last vote when the school district publicly said, we're going to be coming back asking for more money for our current facilities and current everything, right?
Sure.
And so perhaps I'm just standing on my soapbox right now, and this has nothing to do with you. I think people need to know this, because if we're going to push this concept, if we're going to, as a community, get behind it, we're actually going to need to get behind it. It's not just coming here today. It's not the city donating whatever it is, our $1.6 million. It's not the school district that's in for $1 million that they don't have. It's we as a community are going to have to figure this out. And whether it's, I think ultimately, my goal here is that this is a community issue. It's not just, I feel like the school district is somewhat being set up in this deal, because we're going to raise $20 million, we're going to build a facility, and then the school district's going to be standing there saying, now what do we do? So I want to make sure everybody knows we're all going to need to figure out how to make this successful for our community. I think that's important. So I will never stand in the way of progress. I think this is really important for our community. I really do. I want to be able to help. I'm not sure what the answer to the paying for operations is, but I think we all need to be thinking about it long term, and I don't think it's fair that the school district at some point, and probably me, I'll probably be the one saying, look what the school district did. My point is, we got to make sure that the school district doesn't get hung out to dry on this, because it's not fair.
Sure.
Thank you again for everything you've done. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Further comments or questions?
President Ma, I think that concludes our update, and then we would go to the next, the only action item we have, Mr. Basefug is willing to brief the abatement and demolition bid that we received.
Okay, so now you want us to go back to 2.5
Yeah.
and consider that item. Okay. Item 2.5, award bid demolition abatement of 1210 North 43rd Street.
Thank you, Chairwoman Mock, members of the authority. What you have in front of you is the staff report. We're recommending the approval and the award of the bid in the amount of $444,150 to Berger Enterprises for complete abatement, demolition, and removal, contingent on the purchase of the property. It's worded a little bit different. On August 2nd, that the JDA actually unanimously approved the purchase of the property as well as all this. Where we are right now is we're just waiting for basically the Ts to be crossed and things of that nature. But if you look at the package that I put in front of you, we started off with basically two options. First option was looking for a contractor that would do everything. And the second option was looking for a contractor that would do some and the city would do some. Ms. Collings, who put a lot of time and effort into this, I received a lot of phone calls, not only from local contractors, but also national contractors, basically giving some input. She put together an addendum, and we were able to come out with that addendum, basically 4 different options. You can see in the bids, when we open the bids, it really does fluctuate. And we had to analyze those and do our due diligence with public works staff, the rest of city staff, to decide, well, can the city provide any power in doing, working along with our equipment operators? Could we provide, dump facilities, et cetera? There's not much that we're able to do. There's a lot of risk. When I talk about risk, it's not necessarily risk to the city, but we don't have the equipment available. We'd have to rent or lease equipment, and therefore put that and expose that to asbestos, et cetera. So when it was all said and done with, we ran the numbers. The best thing to do is to go with Berger Enterprises, and what that entails is that's basically everything. The city will provide some things. We'll provide water. We will provide some roll-offs if available for some of the internal stuff, and then we'll waive the tipping fees as it goes into landfill and work directly with the folks out there. But when you look at it, it's in our best interest to go with the $444,150 to Berger Enterprises, contingent upon all the paperwork being completed. With that being said, I'll stand for any questions, and Ms. Collings is here as well, so.
Thank you. Any questions?
Move approval.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Sure, second.
Second. Let's open the public hearing. Seeing no one, will close the public hearing. And just to be clear, this was alternate A, so it included
Correct.
the asbestos. So
Yes,
that's
it's
not-
everything.
It's everything.
Yep.
Seeing no further comments, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Any further comments?
I'll move to adjourn.
Motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Welcome, everybody. We will call to order the Grand Forks City Council meeting Monday, October 4th, 2021. Roll call, please.
Weigel,
Here.
Dockler,
Here.
Weber,
Here.
Mock, Kavami,
Here.
Sandy,
Here.
and Veen.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. 1.2, Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. 1.3 mayor's announcements. We came off of another big weekend. Again, we can thank the Alaris Center staff for that quick turnaround. I think we even had Councilmember Weigel out there in his role as a UPD officer helping out. So it was another all hands on deck. The concert went off without a hitch. The football game had one little hitch in it. Well, I couldn't quite get that win, but 2 out of 3 ain't bad. We got the hockey game later that night, so a great weekend all around, and just want to thank everybody once again for their effort. Big day tomorrow. Governor Burgum's coming to town and going to do a walking tour of a lot of the projects that we've got going on, to include the Hugo's Pier Development, Lions, Block V, the Argyle Beacon, Harry's Steakhouse, and the Tech Accelerator. So it'll be a great opportunity to show off. This is, I was talking to Lieutenant Governor today, and he said this is the Main Street Initiative on steroids, and I tended to agree. We've got all the aspects of it. Lots of density on top of infrastructure. We've got mixed use, commercial use, public space, and we've even got, with the pier development, some low-income housing. So really great example of that, and a great example of state and local supporting each other. Let's see, we've also got next week, we've got Indigenous Peoples Day. So we'll have a performance and some art set up immediately after the Committee of the Whole meeting. So that'll be exciting. And I don't know if did you want to add anything to that, Ms. Stockler? Anything else you want to highlight about the event coming up next week?
Just that everyone is welcome to attend. They are asking that you kindly wear a mask when you're not eating and partaking with the refreshments. Otherwise, there is a drum group that's going to be there. There are local dancers that will be performing, as well as students, like you said, from Grand Forks Public Schools showing their art installation. And so it is a great family-friendly event, and we would love for you to be able to attend if you can.
Thank you. You said it a lot better than I did. All right, moving on to 2 awards, presentations, appointments, and proclamations.
2.1 is Fire Prevention Week, October 3rd through the 9th, 2021.
Fire Prevention Week. Whereas the City of Grand Forks is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living in and visiting Grand Forks, and whereas fire is a serious public safety concern both locally and nationally, and homes are the locations where people are at the greatest risk from fire, and whereas Grand Forks residents should be sure everyone in the home understands the sounds of the alarms and knows how to respond, and whereas Grand Forks first responders are dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and home fire injuries through prevention and protection education, and whereas the 2021 Fire Prevention Week theme, Learn the Sounds of Fire Safety, serves to remind us the importance to learning the different sounds of smoke and carbon monoxide alarms. Now, therefore, I, Brandon Boczynski, Mayor of Grand Forks, North Dakota, do hereby proclaim October 3rd through the 9th, 2021 as Fire Prevention Week, and I urge all the people of Grand Forks to support the many public safety activities and efforts of the Grand Forks Fire Department. Thank you to our fire department as well.
And 2.2 is White Cane Day, October 15th, 2021.
All right, proclamation, White Cane Safety Day, October 15th. Whereas the use of a white cane or dog guide is commonly recognized and identified as mobility aids that people who are blind or have low vision rely on to travel independently. Whereas White Cane Safety Day originated through approval of a joint resolution by Congress on October 6, 1964, which designated October 15th of each year as White Cane Safety Day. Whereas it is important to remind one another on White Cane Safety Day that North Dakota traffic statutes require drivers of motor vehicles to yield the right of way to individuals utilizing a visible white cane or a dog guide. And whereas chartered as an independent nonprofit in 1936, the North Dakota Association of the Blind strongly advocates for the observance of the state's white cane safety laws and the provision of white cane training for people with sight impairments so they can travel independently with confidence wherever they need to go in their daily lives. So whereas to coincide with White Cane Safety Day, the North Dakota Vision Services will be hosting their Walk for Vision Olympics on October 10th, 2021. Now, therefore, I, Brandon Boczynski, Mayor of Grand Forks, do hereby proclaim October 15th, 2021 as White Cane Safety Day and call upon all the people of Grand Forks to observe and spread awareness of the issues impacting the visually impaired. Thank you.
2.3 COVID update.
Ms. Swanson's taken over today. Mr. Doulett's got a much-deserved respite today, so at least from coming to council. So Ms. Swanson, please.
Good evening. I'll have John pull up the slides for me if possible. Good evening, Mayor Bochensky and members of the City Council. I'm Debbie Swanson, Director of Grand Forks Public Health Department, and I have a brief update for you this evening. I'm going to go through the data pretty quickly and focus more of my time on our current efforts and some of the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats in our COVID response work right now. So as you can see, we've had a total incidence of cases in Grand Forks County of 12,210. The last 4 weeks have been, each week, the sum, 7-day sum has been in the 200s. The good news is that our vaccination sum is increasing as we are starting to give boosters, and I'll give a little bit more information about that. Unfortunately, our susceptible positivity rate has gone up by almost a percentage point. This is the heat map that shows the cases. The cases are still very low in those higher age groups, but it's pretty well distributed across all age groups now, where we are seeing cases all the way down to from children all the way up through age 79. This is a really quick summary of where we are at this year compared to last year. We did not have that large trajectory at the beginning of the school year, but rather a steady increase approaching the peak that we had last year, and hopefully we won't reach those levels again. This is our case rate per 100,000. And then this is the 7-day average of tests completed. So you can see we're doing a really good job of testing. We're testing good amount of people, but still having that high positivity rate that indicates continued community transmission. And this just compares the PCR, which is the dark line, to the antigen, and both are showing increased positivity. Once again, our 7-day average active hospitalizations, comparing last year to this year, we're still seeing an increase in hospitalizations, but they are somewhat level. They haven't increased a significant amount or a high trajectory, but they're still of concern, obviously. And then this is a county comparison. This didn't translate very well. Oh, I see. It shows Grand Forks County, which is the black line, and then the additional counties that we consider our peer counties of Cass, Ward, and the Burley-Morton area. And Burley-Morton obviously is outpacing all of us. And because of that, as patients get moved around, it places stress on all of the hospitals across the state. And I won't go through all the vaccination status, but you'll be able to see that we've made some really significant progress here in all the age groups, and across all of our peer counties. We're doing pretty well with our full vaccine coverage at 48.8%, only being outpaced by Cass County and 5 percentage points above the state average. So on that note, I wanted to tell you a little bit about what we're doing in regard to boosters, because I know many of you are interested in that. Some of you may be eligible for boosters. We have relocated to the Grand Cities Mall. That offers us a great location with an accessible entrance, adequate parking. It keeps us from tying up space in the Alara Center, and the parking situation in our location downtown is a little bit more challenging. This has been working out really well. It gives us a 6-day opportunity to vaccinate. We start every day at 12:30. Some days we go a little bit later, and then on Saturdays we're open from 10 to 2. We have 10-minute appointments, and people can get their first dose, their second dose, or their third dose. So we're able to accommodate people in whatever their needs are through 2 to 4 lanes, and we will have 5,000 appointment availability between now and the end of November. We're one of 15 vaccination sites. So when I compared the number of doses that had been given last Thursday to this Monday, we'd increased by 1,000 across all of our 15 sites. So all of our partners are working very hard to ensure that we're getting vaccines into arms, whether they're first doses, second doses, or third doses. And then what I most want to focus on is a bottom line. So our strengths, as I've already mentioned, our testing rate is very high. That's good. We're increasing our vaccination rate compared to the previous boosters, previous weeks, largely as those boosters roll out. And one thing that we learned recently is that there's a very high vaccination rate in the Grand Forks Air Force Base population, which likely is boosting that age group of 19 to 29. Those doses, unfortunately, don't get reported to our North Dakota Immunization Information System, or what we affectionately call NDIIS. So it's likely that that age group is a little bit more vaccinated than shows up in some of our charts. The CDC does get that information, anything that's administered through the Department of Defense. Our weaknesses, though, are that we're starting to see those hospitalizations in Grand Forks County and to a greater extent in other counties in the state. We have an increase in case incidence, as already mentioned, and then we are starting to see some of those cases that pop up in people who are already vaccinated or in those that are older. So that's something that we're watching. It was expected, and we anticipate that boosters will help that. On the horizon are some boosters that are being tested right now for possible FDA approval for the Moderna and Johnson & Johnson vaccines. Some opportunities are that the CDC still recommends masking in indoors. The COVID vaccine boosters are now approved for many populations who've received the Pfizer, and then, as I mentioned, the opportunities for other vaccines to follow, as well as the potential for childhood vaccines for that age group 5 to 11 that doesn't have a vaccine yet available. The Pfizer company has submitted all of their data. It will be considered by the FDA committee specifically to look at this next week, and we heard this morning that it's possible I say, because everything seems to change, that we'll have a vaccine for the children in the beginning of November. The threats remain the uncertainty of the trajectory of our cases. In October and November, that's when we had our highest peaks in transmission last year. We didn't have a vaccine last year, though, so this should hopefully be a much milder surge of cases if it does arrive. And then, of course, the sustained increase in cases and hospitalization in other parts of the state. And as we have more and more events that bring people to our community, we need to really keep our eye on that. One of the things I didn't include in the slides is that we also have an opportunity to do some increased testing prior to people traveling to Nashville for the Hockey Hall of Fame game. We've met with officials from the Ralph Engelstad Arena and UND, and we're making some plans to make sure that people who were not able to be vaccinated or didn't get vaccinated will have a testing opportunity before they travel. So that's another opportunity that we have. And the rest of the slides are there and available. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them for you.
Thank you, Ms. Swanson. Do we have any questions or comments from council?
If
Mr.
I may,
Weber,
Mr.
please.
Mayor, thank you. Listed among your threats were active hospitalizations. We're kind of tracking where we were last year. One major difference at this time last year was that Altru had pretty much cleared out hospital beds, so there was an opportunity to accept many COVID patients. This year, I believe, a lot of those beds are filled by people who are now getting medical procedures that they've perhaps put off for the last year. So certainly a threat, but as you also note great progress on vaccination. Vaccination rates. This is often presented as kind of a red-blue issue, a Republican-Democratic issue, and what we're finding in some survey data is that many of the people who have been vaccine hesitant up to this point have had very legitimate concerns that this vaccine was new, that there were potential side effects that were not known. The reality is at this point, the vaccine has now been implemented for coming on 10 months, around 10 months or more, with millions vaccinated. The nation now has over 700,000 deaths from COVID. There have been no deaths from the vaccine. Another concern was about side effects. And at this point, we have a tremendous sample size. Indeed, the treatments that are currently being used in the hospital have more side effects than have been demonstrated by the vaccine. So I just thought that those were some useful things to point out. And I'd also like to stress, and I need some help here, the ongoing incentives. The city is still offering $50 for, is that correct? Have we finished that one up?
Mr. Weber, we provided that $50 certificate just for that one-day event.
Just for that one-day event.
Try to move them to dealers. And not that we won't do something in the future, but
yes,
that was trying to entice people to get to that one-day event, and you would get a reward for showing up.
I hope that we'll consider doing that again or on an ongoing basis. I believe that UND through November 10th is offering a $100 incentive So if the city would jump in, there could be some opportunity for double dipping, but in the meantime, fantastic opportunity at UND. So that's all I've got. Thank you.
Yep. Mr. Sandy.
Mr. Mayor, yeah, I'd like to point out that, Mr. Weber, you're correct. This has been right versus left-leaning, and I think people should take note that our very right-leaning elderly population in Grand Forks are very well vaccinated, and it seems to be the highly left-leaning population at the University of North Dakota that has not been getting vaccinated to the same extent that the rest of the population. So I'm wondering why don't the UND students take advantage of the $100 opportunity? Why aren't they getting vaccinated? As a matter of fact, I'll actually ask Ms. Swanson, how has the vaccination been going at the University of North Dakota? I know that they were starting to vaccinate on campus. Was that done by public health, or was that done by one of our other health providers? And are we seeing success out there? Because we know that population can push us over the 60% mark, and they're the ones that are by far the largest population in our community that haven't been vaccinated.
Mayor Bachensky, members of the council, Mr. Sandy, I'm not able to respond to the number of students that have been vaccinated at the university because I don't have that data, and the university isn't necessarily collecting it. I can respond to the question about who vaccinated on campus. UND Student Health rolled out their own vaccination plan, and they did it all throughout the summer. They encouraged students to be vaccinated while they were visiting campus for the first time, like incoming students. They provided information to their students, the incentive plan, and then they do vaccinations daily in their clinic. And then they also held 2 events where they concurrently administered flu vaccine and COVID vaccine. The group that is the lower vaccinated of 20 to 29 may represent UND students, but it may also...
It probably doesn't. I'm being snarky.
But it may also represent...
I'm certainly being snarky.
It may also represent...
I would assume most of the UND students, or a lot of them, have been vaccinated.
Yeah.
Why the hell did you say that?
I was teasing you.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry, Mr. Weber. My apologies to all my left-leaning friends.
All right. Well, moving on. Thank you, Ms. Swanson. Much appreciated. Any further questions? I think it's great. The incentives maybe didn't work out the best you can, but I think, hearing from what was stated by, a few of the people there, that it was probably people that weren't likely to get vaccinated without it, so just reaching another population. And I know for a fact it hasn't rolled out as well as UND had hoped, but that doesn't mean that every person that you can get is another one on top of that total that helps. So with that, we can move on to 3 public hearings and second readings of ordinances.
3.1, public hearing and second reading of ordinance relating to legislative code update.
Thank you, Dan. If you want to, you got something, you got your finger up. All right.
I do.
Please.
I don't want to go through the changes, other than to say that there were a couple of grammatical modifications that occurred that we found from the first reading and the second reading. I can go through them. For example, there was an extra word, an extra shall, or it read also shall or shall also, and we made some changes based upon some comments that we received. So they just wanted the council to know that there were some grammatical changes, but not substantive changes since the first reading.
I'll move approval.
All right. We got a motion and a second. Let's open the public hearing on item 3.1. Our public hearing period is closed. We got a motion and a second. Do we have any further comment by council? All right, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. 3.1 carries unanimously. 4 action items.
All right, 4.1, Public Works Operations Director Employment Agreement.
Mayor Bachensky and members of City Council, as you recall, we recently moved forward with a new city planner in Ryan Brooks, and we had one additional position that's been open, and that's our Public Works Operations Director that was formerly held by Ms. Lee Ray Amundsen. And some of you weren't here in 2013-14. I was the Public Works Director back in 2013, and I got promoted to City Administrator. At that time, the Public Works Director was in charge of both Water Works and Public Works Operations. And when I define what Public Works Operations, it's street, sanitation, and central garage. That's what we call Public Works Operations. We split that I formerly was I currently am a contract employee, and as a Public Works Director, I was a contract employee. The city went through a process, split that into two departments instead of just having one department. We filled those positions with 2 civil service employees, and they maintain their civil service status. So right now, Melanie Parvey continues to serve as the Waterworks Director, and Lee Ray Amundsen prior was a civil service employee and continued as Public Works Operations Director until she retired earlier this year. So we went through a process, and we went through a day-long process. We had morning sessions, and then we had afternoon sessions as described in the staff report. We had 5 strong candidates. We had 2 in particular that really stood out, and one of those was the candidate we have in front of you, Ms. Sharon Lips. And so we really did have a terrific panel of 5 candidates, really terrific people that helped evaluate those folks. And in front of you this evening, we have Ms. Sharon Lips, and so we're really honored that she has accepted our offer to come work for the city of Grand Forks. She currently works for Walsh County as the highway superintendent. Also kind of serves as that, we'll call it Walsh County Highway Engineer. So in both of those functions of both kind of the day-to-day operations, which I would describe for us as like public works operations, but also does county engineering within Walsh County too. So again, as I stated, she was one of the top tier candidates that we saw. We discussed the agreement with Ms. Lips, and she concurs with the agreement that we have in front of you to become a contracted department head with the city of Grand Forks. The agreement's very similar to what you saw with Mr. Brooks regarding severance. We did negotiate the salary that's contained within the agreement, and other than that, it's pretty straightforward. She's happens to be at a county engineer meeting in Bismarck, but she is available virtually. If you should want to ask her any questions. But from what we discussed last week, she's excited to start with the city of Grand Forks. She's intending to start on November 1st. So we're a little less than a month away, but she's willing to certainly help out in between just to get herself familiarized with the public works operations. One thing I'll say about public works operations, as you can say, any given day of the week, 7 days a week, 365, she's going to inherit a terrific crew that just gets the job done, doesn't get to know, they get to yes. And so I'm really ecstatic that she's going to be an added value team member to a group of men and women who just want to get the job done. So with that, Mayor, we're excited, and I'll hand it back over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Phelan. I just wanted to say first to Ms. Lips, she's already made a great first impression. The hiring process definitely had its ups and downs, but she's proven to be unflappable and definitely willing to roll with the punches. She comes very highly recommended from our Walsh County counterparts. And I actually wanted just to share, I read the Walsh County Register, which I don't make a habit of, unfortunately, but I got to read something interesting that you had stated, and I thought was pretty insightful, is having shovel-ready projects. When you have state and federal money that you've got that's available quickly, you have a backlog of shovel-ready projects to be able to move forward on. I think that worked out well for your job as the highway superintendent, and it'll work out well as a public operations director. So with that, I don't know if you have wanted to make any comments or just introduce yourself quickly, and then we'll move on. Ms. Lipsch.
I'd just like to say hello to everybody. Sorry I couldn't be there tonight, but I do have this commitment to fulfill here at the Association of Counties meeting in Bismarck. I'm very excited to start this endeavor with all of you, and I got to meet several of your public works employees, and I think you have a great team there, and I'm very excited to get to know everybody better.
Thank you. All right, with that, we'll open up to comments or motions. Mr. Sandy?
I'll move approval of staff recommendation.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Second from Mr. Weigel. Further comment?
I do have, Mayor, I have a quick question.
Yep, Mr. Veen, please.
In the city code, is the current public works director a classified department head?
I can answer that. Mr. Veen, the way the ordinance reads is it talks about public works director.
Yep.
Is deemed to be a classified department head.
Right.
Wojciechowski, as I stated earlier, we tried to clean up the code once. I was a contracted employee since 2001, I think, is when I became Public Works Director. So really, even though the code for the last 20 years has said classified, I served 14 years almost as a contracted department head, despite what the code said. So that was one of those things that Mr. Gosted and Ms. Bovet and I brought forward, is that we do have some inconsistencies.
Yeah, Mr. Bean, I know we had tried to clean it up in the past, and I think there's a distinct difference too, as we separated waterworks and other departments and made it an operations director and in a smaller role, I guess, than the original Public Works one was in the past. Not that it's not an extremely difficult one. Mr. Weber?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. It's my understanding that Ms. Lipsch had a fantastic application and a great interview, and I anticipate that the recommendation will go forward tonight based on previous votes, and I look forward to working with her. I'll be voting against the recommendation tonight, not because of anything to do with Ms. Lipsch, but because to be consistent with my previous votes on this issue. And I just haven't been brought into the fold yet on this, so I just wanted to give an explanation on why I'll be voting the way I will tonight.
Thank you.
I'll also say that my vote does not have anything to do with Mayor Brzezinski either. It's just the principle of public service positions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weber. And I know we've kind of gone down this road before, and I think it's an important designation, which, we did talk about when we were out in Bismarck. It's, I've always been a pro-union and pro-worker kind of guy and believe in the power of collective bargaining. I've been a member of 3 different, unions throughout my career and see the value there. And I think you have to separate the union versus civil service. They're two different things, and you don't have that collective bargaining agreement. And I know Mr. Veen's had some statements and concern about political pressure. I'd point out that, regardless of decisions that are made, if 4 elected officials decide to move something, and especially 4 elected city council members, they can change code at any time. So there's always a balance that you have to have there. But I do, continue to wish to move forward more business-like and doing department head hiring at that higher level as contracted. And I think it offers a lot of benefits, and sometimes you have to make decisions in the best interest of the city, and as elected officials, you've got to be able to do that. So I guess I'll try to win you over one more time, Mr. Weber, but I don't think it's going to work. But Ms. Lipsch is happy with the contract, ready to move forward, and administration and Ms. Lipsch have come to terms, and you have to assume that she knows what's best for herself as well. So,
Mayor, one more comment. I want to say thanks to you and Todd and your staff. I was able to go out and attend the breakfast out at the public safety meeting and meet the candidates. I thought that was a great experience, and I appreciated it.
Thank you, Mr. Breen. We enjoyed having you. Any further comment?
Mayor, I do have one thing as well.
Yep, please, Ms. Dockler.
Mrs. Lipsch, soon to be welcome to Grand Forks in the community. I do feel very similarly to Mr. Weber on this, and so I will be voting no tonight. Has nothing to do whether or not you are qualified. I think you are. I think they made an excellent choice in offering this position to you. It's purely based on the fact that I believe that this should be a civil servant position.
Thank you, Ms. Dockler. Any further comment? All right, seeing none, let's go to a roll call vote. Ms. Storstad?
Sure. Weigel?
Yes.
Dockler?
No.
Weber?
No.
Mock?
Yes.
Gavami?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Veen?
No.
Thank you.
Motion passes.
Yeah, 4.1 carries 4-3. Ms. Lipsch, we're excited to see you in person here and finish up your work in Bismarck, but technically I think you're kind of working for us now, so give us a little bit of love out there. Thank you.
4.2 Beacon by Epic Video Board Agreement.
All right, Mr. Gosta, is this your item as well?
Yes. This agreement came forward at the request of the developer. As you know, you recently approved the development agreement, which included the management agreement. And within that management agreement, it provided that the developer should have 7.5 seconds per minute of advertising on the video board that'll be located adjacent to Demers Avenue. That amounts to 3 hours per day. They wouldn't be charged for that type of use of the video board. The management agreement is set to terminate December 31 of 2026, but there are opportunities for the city to extend that. I think it's 4 extensions of 5 years each, but it could terminate by its own volition on December 31 of 2026. The developer is not a party to that management agreement. It's between the city and the nonprofit entity called Beacon Events, Inc. And if you recall, the Beacon Events, Inc. has a board of directors, 9-member board of directors, 3 of which would be appointed by the city, 3 of which would be appointed by the school district, 2 by the park district, and then 1 by the developer. And so the issue was, since the developer is not a party to that management agreement and they would potentially could lose the use of the video board if it did terminate, they wanted this separate agreement. The scope of the advertising is the same as it exists in the management agreement, meaning it's only for tenants or owners within the 3 buildings that are going to be surrounding the public plaza, or those that sponsor events at the public plaza. The time under this separate agreement is the same as exists under the management agreement. It's still that 7.5 seconds per minute. Also, they have to comply with all the rules and regulations of the city with respect to the video. Again, that's the same as exists under the management agreement terms. This only becomes effective if the management agreement terminates. And so if, for example, the management agreement isn't extended on December 31 of 2026, then this particular video agreement would kind of come into play. And that would be for an initial 10-year term. There are some provisions that speak to termination of this video agreement, or that the agreement wouldn't even become effective if we're at that spot. So let's say one of these events occurs before the management agreement expires. If, for example, we sell the plaza, or there's a default by the developer under the TIF agreement or the development agreement itself, or the other agreements that are to be provided under that TIF agreement. If any of those events occur before the effective date, then this agreement becomes null and void, or if one of those events occurs after this video agreement becomes effective, it would terminate the agreement as well. One item, it's also the agreement is not assignable without our written consent. One thing I did want to add, there was a change, and it was a result of some communication I had with Councilmember Sandy today. You'll notice under the agreement, it talks after the first 10-year initial term that it would automatically renew unless the city did something to terminate it. So somebody would have to put that on their calendar, the tickler system. So it's the inverse, is that this will terminate unless the city council approves an extension for another 10-year term. And we'll make that change in the developer. I talked to their attorney today, and their developer agreed to that modification. So there will be a modification of the agreement than the one that's in your packet. So with that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer any.
Thank you, Mr. Gosta. Thank you, Council President, for finding that as well. Did you ever think you'd spend that much time on 7.5 seconds per minute of video board?
You don't even get it in a rodeo. You have to stay on for 8 seconds before you
That's
get
true.
off.
Yeah, but it's not even a full bull ride. I think I think it protects the developer. I think it gives a little bit more freedom to the management group as well. They're not quite as tied then if they decide to make a change, that Beacon would still be protected with their time and not feel obligated to continue with that management group if if that board later feels that it's not the right fit. So I think it cleans it up well. If we've got any other further comment?
Question and comment, quick, if I may.
Please.
I should have done my homework. Has this gone to planning and zoning? It has. It's not noted there.
I don't think this particular part of it did, because it was...
I don't think this agreement has gone to planning and zoning. I think went to planning and zoning with respect to the sign itself.
Right.
This is the agreement as to the use of that particular sign.
Very good. And my comment is, thanks to President Sandy for keeping his eye on the ball here. It's a good change.
Geez, you're getting a lot of love tonight. That's good. All right, do we have a further comment or a motion on the item?
I'll certainly make the motion, but I wanted to mention that Mr. Gust had put a lot of time in on this, and it took, I think, a lot of creativity, right? He came up with a very eloquent solution, and I appreciate that, so thank you.
Is that a motion, Mr. Sandy? Got a motion for approval from President Sandy. We have a second? We got a second from Vice President Mock. Any further comment on item 4.2? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, same sign. 4.2 carries unanimously. That was brief. That's all for action items. Move on to 5 information items.
5.1, statement of changes in cash balance as of August 31st.
Thank you.
And 5.2, Block V Development Agreement Update.
Now, did you have something on this, Mr. Phelan, first?
Mayor Buczynski and members of the City Council, what we'd like you to do this evening under this informational item is vote to move this to a special City Council meeting a week from today. One of the reasons why we couldn't get it on this agenda, there are some state statutes on advertising for this public hearing, and so it requires us to move. We could make this meeting, so we're going to make the week from today's meeting have a special City Council in advance of the Committee of the Whole meeting. But we would sure like to have you guys vote on it. Otherwise, we got to go around to you guys all individually. So if you wouldn't mind making a motion to move this to a special City Council meeting a week from today, Monday, at 5:30 in advance of the Committee of the Whole meeting.
And
all right.
If I may, in addition to the technical matters you just described, what is the urgency here? They're wanting to break ground? Yep. Or get started on the project?
We have spoken with the developer. They would like to start construction, and again, this is the St. John's building, so it's a matter of windows and all those features. It's not, but they would like to start moving forward this fall.
Great. I'll make that.
I chalked it up to time is money, Mr.
Good.
Weber. So, all right, Mr. Weber made the second, I believe, right? Did you? All right. Okay. All right. So we got a motion and second I guess the motion is to hold a special City Council meeting at 5:30 at this place, October 11th. All right. Any further comments on that particular piece of it? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Was that did you oppose to that, Mr. Kalami, or were you late on the for now, I would put it as unless we get him back.
Not opposed to it. Vote in favor.
Okay, so that was unanimous. Thank you. We had a little delay. You must be really far away. All right. 6, is that all the update we had on 5.2, Mr. Phelan?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. 6, citizen comments. Any citizen comments online? Seeing all these faces in here I recognize, so, but you're also citizens as well. If you wish to comment, now is the time. All right, seeing none, citizen comment period's closed. 7, approval of minutes and bills.
7.1, vendor list and engineer's estimate as is presented.
President Sandy moves, nods in approval. Take that as a motion. Mr. Weigel seconds. All those in favor to approve the vendor list and engineer estimate signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. 7.1 carries. Vendor list is approved, and engineer's estimate 7.2. Ms. Norstead.
Yes, 7.2 is your minutes from August 16th.
Got a motion from Mr. Weber to approve. We have a second. Second from Mr. Weigel. Any further comment? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. The minutes from August 16th are approved unanimously. Number 8, city administrator comments. Mr. Phelan, any comments this evening?
Just a few things. As you said, Mayor, it's been an all hands on deck, so I just want to say thank you to Public Transportation Director Dale Bergman and his entire team, and he had I thought, a wonderful story in Saturday's Grand Forks Herald about what he's doing in a terrific photo. So Dale would want me to thank him, not him in particular, but all the operations staff that are making things happen on a day-to-day basis, which is extraordinary. Also want to thank all the city staff that helped support at the Alara Center this weekend and 2 weekends ago. Thanks for them for stepping up. I want to thank Mr. Basefield and Ms. Collins for stepping up to work on that former Holiday Inn abatement and demolition. So I really appreciate the fact of how our city employees step up and go above and beyond to get the job done. So just thank you to all.
Thank you, Mr. Phelan. 9 mayor and council member comments. So start with Mr. Weigel. Any comments this evening?
Just to correct you, Mayor, was out at the Alara Center as a dad, working parking, as it rained for hours and hours Friday night, so not out actually working, so just volunteering.
Oh, you're a good man. Makes it even better. Ms. Dockler, any comments this evening?
No, just that you are welcome to join us for Indigenous Peoples Day next Monday following the Council of the Whole.
Thank you. Mr. Weber.
Yes, if I may, Mr. Mayor. A quick apology to Council President Sandy, but more importantly to everyone. I think that my comments gave the suggestion that vaccination was a partisan issue. I was actually trying to say the exact opposite, that people had very reasonable concerns about the newness of the vaccine and possible side effects, but that those have proven otherwise over the last year. And so the snarkiness that it entailed, I feel like I have some responsibility there. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you, Mr. Weber. Mr. Kavami, any comments this evening?
The center staff was able to partake in 2 of the events this weekend, and it went off without a hitch, and everybody had fun, and just thank you guys.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kavami. Mr. Veen?
I have nothing to add. Thank you.
All right, Vice President Mock.
Nothing, thank you.
President Sandy, no.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I was hoping that you were going to be able to treat everybody for dinner tonight after winning the World Series of Poker, but unfortunately you came back somewhat empty-handed, I've heard. A little lighter in the wallet. Mr. Weber, my sincere apologies. You know I can never help but take an opportunity to add snark, right? Especially when you talk. I'm sorry about that. It's not, everyone knows it's not personal. It's not personal. Mr. Weber and I have a very good relationship. I think Facebook being down today is a very good reminder of how reliant we become on Facebook. I'm a little bit curious as to if we shouldn't take a look at a secondary streaming site. I know the city does have a YouTube channel. Perhaps we should, and other taxing entities in town utilize YouTube so that you can't take public comments. This would isolate, if we wanted to do that, it could isolate us from the people that say that my hair is going thin or things like that online. Sometimes that would be effective for me as well. Lastly, I am very concerned about the CTE Center. I don't know how the school district's going to pay for it. I know it's going to come down to a whole lot of heavy lifting, so I certainly hope we can figure out how to, if we're going to move forward, and I think it's a big if we're going to move forward with the CTE Center, how we can help manage the longevity of the facility. See, you don't go out and buy an airplane and not be able to pay for the insurance, the hangar, and the fuel to fly it. I'm worried that we're buying an airplane here and we're not going to be able to maintain it. And I don't think that, although I got a lot of appreciation for our governor, sometimes I think our governor's, his unfunded mandates make it very difficult for the local taxing entities. So I would hope that since some of the people in this room are going to be seeing him tomorrow, they can ask him if he can add operational funding for the CTE centers into his budget for 2 years from now. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, President Sandy. I don't have much for tonight. I think with Facebook being down today, I actually hope it's down for the rest of our lives, because I don't think it's a benefit to society, quite frankly, and I think we're all better off without it. Outside of that, just want to thank city staff. We've really had a lot of projects and a lot of heavy lifting not just recently, but in the last, since I've been in and long before. So just want to thank everybody for their hard work. Everyone got a much-deserved Monday night off last Monday, who's here tonight, and just appreciate all the work city staff and inspector staff do to make this city great. So with that, everybody have a good night, and we'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Got a motion from President Sandy. Do we got a second? Second from Mr. Weigel. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned.